Hello, welcome to B2B Revenue Leaders. I'm your host, Dustin, and this episode is brought to you by Testimonial Hero. So video testimonials and case studies, they build trust. That's kind of a no-brainer, but they take time to create. And as a marketer, you got a million things to do. So that's where Testimonial Hero comes in as an extension of your team focused on creating customer content. Learn more at testimonialhero.com. On this episode, I'm joined by Gianna Scorsone, who is the co-founder and CEO of ChampionHQ. And we're talking about customer marketing 3.0. Specifically about how customer marketing living under the umbrella of customer success may actually be a good fit. We talk about how to identify advocates, and we also focus on how to have an always-on advocate pipeline and how software can help enable that. Hey, Gianna, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dustin. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's funny. I work at a customer marketing company, essentially. So do you. And I don't talk about customer marketing much on this podcast. So I'm glad we get to change that and we get to dive in here a bit.
Let's jump in.
Yeah, and in the kind of pre-questionnaire, I asked for some concepts, things you want to talk about. An interesting one that I purposely didn't Google because I didn't want to spoil it for myself is customer marketing 3.0. So maybe let's start there.
I don't even know what would come up in Google. I made that up, but it's got a good ring to it, right? Maybe we're going to coin it right here and now on this call.
There we go. Yeah, we'll create the first blog article on it, and then you'll show up in Google. So you're all set.
Yeah. I love it. Thanks. I appreciate that SEO push there.
Yeah, so you like you said, you coined it, you made it up. What is it? What does it entail?
Great question. It's the next wave of what needs to happen. And I really think about customer marketing and how it's evolved over the last couple of years. I think it's a pivotal role that has been put in place, but one that hasn't gotten a lot of focus in terms of thinking about the business implications and how to fold it into the strategy of growing a go-to-market team and overall strategy. I think that when I think about customer marketing, the obvious place it started was how can we engage customers? How can we create delightful moments? How could we fold them into the mix? How can we spread education and think about user adoption and really assist in communication with customers? But what really needs to be thought of in addition to that is what impact does that need to have? And I think that there was some implications of that. There were some assumptions of that, but there really weren't any tools to assist in that. And they've really been operating over the last few years with this just experiment of let's just create some great dialogue. Let's create some great interactions, but let's talk about what that impact is. From my perspective in customer marketing 3.0, it's really helping to identify impact. Yes, we've identified it's about delighting the customer. It is about engaging with the customer and increasing that engagement. But that impact is really to assist the sales team or BDR teams in building new pipeline through your customer channel. And it's also that convergence between customer marketing and customer success. How can customer marketing really assist customer success in owning that NRR, the number, the retention, the upsell, the cross-sell through these engagements with your customers? So it's really thinking about how to attach that revenue impact. We think about all of these pre-sale marketing tools out there, the Marketos, the Eloquas, the ones that have been around for decades now, do a phenomenal job of really identifying that impact through revenue attribution. And that's where post-sale marketing, the tools have been underdeveloped, underdefined, and therefore it's been really hard for customer marketing to also define their role in that impact. And that's really what customer marketing 3.0 is about.
Yeah, it's this weird, almost paradox where an NRR number over 100 means you're not going to shrink, is the short way to say it. So it's the holy grail for SaaS companies. It makes everyone's lives a whole lot easier. But it's weird that customer marketing has always been underinvested and also the first to get the axe.
That's right.
Like during 2023, it was shocking how many really good customer marketers were just out of a job first before anyone else. Do you think a lot of that has to do with just, like you said, the tracking, the attribution, the strategy side wasn't there? Is that mostly what it is?
I believe so. I think it was always one of those things where it makes sense. You should do it because that's the right thing for the customer. Therefore, results should follow. But there was a hard point because of not having these mature tools to be able to create those links and those ties to show that impact, that sure, if you can't justify with the CFO that your program is driving direct influence and impact, it's going to get cut. And I agree with you. So many amazing customer marketing professionals that feel very deeply in building these great relationships with customers. And we're doing so at a much more personal basis than a lot of CS teams are able to do because of scale, because of the amount of portfolio they have within each of their books of business. Unfortunately, CFOs weren't able to recognize this. And so it really is about maturing the conversation around this impact so that C levels can see the impact, they can fully realize it and see that direct attribution.
Yeah, so I'm curious then where I know there's no perfect answer for this, but maybe where customer marketing should actually live. And where I'm getting at here is usually they're in marketing, but not in marketing. They're like off to the
Yeah,
side.
there's that dotted lines.
Yeah, and then there's this big divide between CS, who's like protecting their customers, and customer marketers who are trying to get in there and market to and through their customers. So could you put customer marketing on the CS team? Is that a valid way to do it? I'm curious what your thoughts there.
I see some really big enterprise organizations doing this today. One of our clients, this has just happened. So not only customer marketing, but community as well has moved over to the CS org. I think this is very interesting. I think that there are pros and cons to both scenario, whether living in marketing, whether living in customer success. Potentially advocacy could also live under revenue operations, really in its own function. I think it is really dependent on the organization, how things are structured. What I will say, though, is customer marketing has the ability to be that glue, that core to tie in all of the go-to-market teams from SDR, BDR, sales, onboarding to customer success and marketing. Because customer marketing is the one who's really looking at that full journey, the full life cycle of the customer journey, and can push and pull information to these different teams to really break down these silos. So I think no matter where they sit, they're the ones that really need to bridge communication, that really need to collaborate with multiple teams, and customer success being a big one. I love the convergence that's happening between customer marketing and customer success. I think historically, customer success has been thrown the short end of the stick, saying you own the customer. And so therefore, as you mentioned, they put up these walls, these barriers. They become a little bit territorial because they own that number and they're expected to do it on their own. And sales aren't expected to hit their numbers alone. They've got massive sales support. So why aren't we looking at this in that same light to really allow this customer marketing function to collaborate strongly with customer success, to power QBRs with insightful conversations and insights around how many champions there are within the organization, how they're interacting, who's doing case studies for you, who's driving revenue for you outside of their individual logo as a means to really help customer success deeply understand each of the brands within their portfolio.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like the gatekeeping thing is interesting because we run into that personally a lot. So we create customer stories. So in order to do that, a customer has to say, yes, I will talk to you. And that's such a big blocker sometimes because they're a little afraid to go to CS potentially because they're so distant from them. But we also have companies, like you said, where maybe they don't live directly in CS, but they have that close relationship to them and to sales. And it's as easy as, raise your hand and tell me who I should talk to. And there's that trust, and then they can actually produce content. They can actually do customer research. It's just, it's the one revenue team thing, which seems obvious, but still isn't there yet.
Totally agree. And even rather than saying, hey, who could I, reach out to? Can you nominate people? There's still that institutional knowledge that you have to break through. Customer success isn't incentivized to help out in this, nor our sales is a little bit more because the case studies are going to help them sell. But imagine a world where you now have a tool that you're able to identify the right people for that right ask. And that's becomes very powerful to say, hey, I'm in customer marketing. Here are the people that I've identified that would be really great for this. And you bring that list to customer success so that it's a short list. Far easier, especially if you could also already have the insights of who's in a renewal process that might need to be on pause, who has help desk tickets open, and so it's not the right time to reach out to them. All of these different factors that are going to allow you to understand if it's the right or wrong time to reach out to these different customers. We're building an integration with Gainsight that I'm really excited about because we're a customer marketing platform. Gainsight has community. They also have their CS platform. And so all of these things that I just mentioned, all of these factors of being able to identify and understand help desk tickets open, the general health of the company, if they're in renewal, if they've just upgraded or downgraded, allowing customer marketing to see this is going to allow them to do their job a lot easier. And it's also going to help break that friction of people reaching out at a time that's not opportune. So again, you build that trust that you were just talking about, Dustin, in a more proactive way.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear all that stuff is just being built and happening now, whereas I feel like sales has had the equivalent tools for 10 years.
That's why I'm so passionate about what we're building. Yeah. I was a go-to-market leader. I ran RevOps for 12 years. So I'm deeply passionate about breaking down these silos. And then most recently, I ran full go-to-market, which was SDR, BDR through customer success. And I've seen the discrepancy in tools available for so many decades now. I know I look a lot younger than I really am, but that's why it's such an exciting time. And I took a lot of practices that I learned from services. I actually think services do this really well. This idea of relationship-driven sales, this idea of really building relationships with your customers in a way that goes outside of that one singular program that you're running with them or engagement that you have with them. And it's bringing them to dinners and it's introducing them to other peers that are at other industries or other companies and really facilitating a community being built. This is what services has been doing for years without the name around it. And it's really exciting to see product and specifically SaaS really starting to adopt this concept as they're really running towards the path of profitability. Everyone is really trying to understand how do we become more profitable, at least like veer towards profitability. Well, customers are your answer. So there needs to be a far more acute focus on driving more with your customers, both at the logo and utilizing them for their networks and allowing them to have a voice and a space to also build their personal brands. And that's that give-get that you get in building these relationships with them.
Yeah, it seems obvious too, but like one of our best campaigns is just building good champions, and then they go to another company and then they buy us again.
That's right. That's right.
Seems pretty easy, right?
That's
like
right.
It seems like an obvious one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think you hit on something really interesting there with it's all shifting, and NRR in particular is becoming more important because of the quest for profitability.
Right.
It's not just the grow at all costs. And I made the switch from, 10, 12 years in SaaS companies to an agency that actually has to make money and not burn cash.
I was the flip of that. I was like, we were running 12 years in RevOps having to achieve 7 to 15% EBITDA year over year. And then all of a sudden I moved to product and it's like growth at all cost phase. I was like, I can spend anything I want. What? Whoa, amazing.
Amazing, but maybe build some bad habits.
Irresponsible. I call it irresponsible growth.
Exactly. Yeah. Grow at all costs though. Yeah. Who cares if it's irresponsible? You also mentioned too, you hinted at a couple of things, or you called them out of like open support tickets or up for renewal. I'm curious, are there any other ones? Because I think people should look into tools at this, but I think some people are maybe a little early for it and trying to do this in a spreadsheet and banging their head against the wall a little bit. So what are maybe some other triggers people could think through and track here?
That's a great question. I think it's looking at potentially product level data. How often are they using your product and your tool? And so product usage, I would say, is a big trigger that you could look at. I even think marketing engagement, how are they interacting with different materials that you send over their way? If they have an education platform, what does that look like? And then just overall, I think that there are some really simple triggers even of, are they taking your calls? Are they responding to your emails? That's such a simplistic but very powerful trigger of how they feel about the relationship, whether it's transactional or if they're a deep partner with you.
Yeah, and I think the one thing too people maybe struggle with here is you just rattled off a few triggers, right? Even off the top of your head. I'm sure there's tons more. So how do you make sense of all that data without it becoming a black box? Do you know what I mean?
Use Champion, my tool, huh?
Yeah, there you go. Easy plug, easy solution.
But you're very selfish for that layout, but it's true. Look, I think what I would recommend though is whittling it down to everyone's environment is a little different. Everyone's triggers are going to be a little different. So can you identify some of these themes or patterns I would say always start simple. Go with the most simplistic perspective of this person seems engaged. What does that mean to you as an organization? And then rinse and repeat and look for those triggers and then start small from there.
Gotcha. And then I'll ask a selfish question here too, because I'm curious about customer advocacy and getting people
Yeah.
to tell customer stories. But I'm curious how that works there as well. Do you focus on people to hand raise in general of, hey, I'm an advocate? Do you do the survey route, like a user evidence or someone else? But curious what that looks like.
Yeah, with our tool, what we're doing is utilizing AI to help identify who's most likely to take an active advocacy. So we're looking at all of those different factors that you just had me rattle off. We're going to have our AI model pick those up for you and categorize them so that you can see how people rate in these different categories. And then they get a simple score: MVP, good, fair, poor. And that's going to allow you to focus in on those people at any given time. It's like an MPS 4.0, right? How happy are they? Are they going to do something positive for you when you are in the room and even when you are out of the room? And then how can you put them in these different revenue driving plays? So it's activating them, sending them a survey. What would you like to engage in? Because Dustin, you might like to do podcasts, right? Or a webinar. You might love to speak, whereas someone else may prefer the written word and really doesn't want that spotlight. And so it's having people raise their hand to say, hey, this is how I'd love to engage with you. This is how often I'd like to engage with you. And then it's asking them for those right moves. So you mentioned spreadsheet. Most customer marketers are working off of a spreadsheet right now. And that's what we wanted to put on speed. How can we make something look like a spreadsheet in some ways, but really modularize and create automations and workflows? And so that's what we're focused on at Champion, which is exciting to really help systematize and operationalize these practices like case studies that need to get done, but are so hard to manage because of the sheer number of, customers and users you have. So we help identify where to start, how people want to engage, and then finding them really quickly when you've got that need.
Nice. Yeah, I could see the value too in the objectivity of it because it's AI. Because I found my early equivalent of this, let's say 5 years ago, was put a bunch of customers I thought were a good fit in a sheet and be, hey, CS, can you comment on this?
Yeah.
And let me know.
Yeah.
And there was so much variance depending on who the CS person was. So some of them are like, this one's great, this one's great. Other ones would not, no matter who it was, they would not let me edit. Whereas this like it makes it objective. It might actually help that.
I've never used that word for it, and I'm now going to put that into my narrative. So thank you for that. But you're absolutely right. It takes away the subjectivity of how people feel and also the connection you might make. As much as I'd love to say I can make a great connection with anyone, that's simply not true. And so someone might make a better connection with someone versus another person. And so you shouldn't let that inhibit the understanding of whether or not they'd be a good advocate.
Yeah, then one kind of question on that point too is something we always promote is whoever has the best relationship, make the ask because it's coming from someone they know. Is that something that you propose as well? Or do you go more the campaign route where it can just be more almost third party approach?
I would do both. So I'd go campaign route to really get the scale, get the bulk. And then I would have the key players tap in and say, hey, did you check out this email? It's from our marketing team. I nominated you. Like, whether or not that's real or not, it doesn't matter. Hey, thought of you right away for this. Would love for you to participate. So I do the double whammy to get the scale, but then also use it. I used to call them trigger events. Anytime I could offer my sales or my account managers, that's what we used to call them, CS team, provide them with a trigger event, a reason, a thoughtful reason to reach out to their customers to build a relationship. It was always positive. So I love to do the double effect there, a marketing campaign in addition to the white glove personalized reach out.
Nice. And I think the other kind of hidden thing here too with tracking it in a software or something like that is it's more always on as well. Because that was always my struggle is every 6 to 8 months, depending on how busy I was, we would run some type of customer marketing campaign and then we just wouldn't do it for 6 months.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I imagine, is running in the background, always on, always going.
Always on, very easy to use. And so you're able to systematize it so that you avoid those peaks and valleys of running one big campaign and then having it lay dormant. This is going to allow you to run a repeatable program with a very lean team because unfortunately, the reality is, as we mentioned in our first couple minutes of the call, customer marketing often gets hit. They don't get the budget. They don't get the headcount. How could we really assist teams or the person of one doing more with less?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think the theme here to wrap it up is just put some more respect on customer marketing.
That's right.
It's the short of it. This was great. Thank you so much. I
Thank
know
you.
you are very passionate about this, obviously, and focus on it. So if people want to connect, learn more, check out what you do, where should they go for that?
Awesome. Feel free to go to ChampionHQ.com. And also my LinkedIn page, feel free to connect. Gianna Scorsone. I'm the only one in LinkedIn. Tricky spelling, but we'll get it out there for you. But feel free to connect and would love to share more.
Awesome. So we'll include those links. So don't worry about the tricky spelling. They'll find you.
Perfect.
Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dustin. You as well.
Thanks for listening to this episode. My key takeaway is just how important it is to bring CS in under the revenue umbrella and have them work closely with marketing and sales. They're kind of this forgotten child of the revenue team. So bringing them in can help close that divide between CS and the other teams. And it can really help you get a better handle on identifying advocates and also enabling marketing and sales to help CS with renewal and ultimately up your net revenue retention. If you enjoyed this episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts, hit subscribe. And as always, I'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode.